Good evening, and welcome to this week's installment of Thursday with Jamila. I hope you guys have had a phenomenal day, and if you hadn't, well, hopefully we can have a conversation tonight that can shift things for you. Do me a favor as you all are coming in and like and share this post. Let's get our tribe online. Let's have a very meaningful chat. As you guys know, I am customarily known for keeping you guys in the room for no longer than 30 minutes, and I severely went over my time last week, or not last week, but our last broadcast, and I want to do my due diligence to try to stay within our allotted time frame. um, but if the conversation just gets to be too good, then I may have to hold you guys a little bit longer. But we'll see. But I want to go ahead and jump into it. And tonight's topic is entitled The Story I Tell. And I wanted to personalize it because we are all telling a story about our life, whether we are doing it intentionally or unintentionally. And I want us to take ownership of those narratives, because you ultimately get to decide how you are going to show up in the world. And that is a decision that you need to make, with a level of intentionality that's unmatched. Because if you don't choose to lock in and show up in the truth of who you are, then the world then gets to create a narrative and they get to decide how you should be presented. And a lot of people find themselves going through that, and you look up, 2 3 years from now and say, how in the world did I get here? And honestly, it's a level of mindlessness that gets you from point A to point B, and you have no recollection of how you got there. And so, for our subtitle, I want to talk about silencing the negative chatter, and that really is in essence how we live out false narratives. So I put up a quote on Instagram and Facebook a couple days ago, and the quote was by Brene Brown, who is one of my absolute favorite authors, educators. I really need somebody who knows her to at least let me be in the same room with her, because I absolutely love her approach to psychology. If and when I ever finally get that LPC, I really feel like her approach is one that I would wholeheartedly subscribe to. But the quote that I cited of hers was, either you walk inside your story and you own it, or you stand outside of your story and you hustle for your worthiness. And really, the two, when you look at them, it is either deciding to become a victor or a victim of your narrative. And so, walking inside of your story and owning it, this makes you take a stance of victory. Like, I am deciding to stand wholeheartedly, I'm deciding to stand flat footed, I am deciding to stand 10 toes down in my truth. And I own it. The good, bad, the indifferent, it is something that I own because it is the truth that is authentically mine. Standing outside of our story is when we operate with a level of mindlessness and we allow the world to dictate how we show up. We subscribe to their ideologies of what we're capable of. We don't ask questions. We just kind of go with the flow. And in doing that, you're always fighting for worth, because you're not showing up in truth. You are showing up to meet somebody else's definition of you. And so that means you're always at the mercy of who's ever writing the pages that day. And so we've got to be a little bit more cognizant when it comes to that, because so many of us are standing outside of our stories, hustling. Every day it's approving. Every day it's, I got to let them know who I am. And we're always fighting for and combating for worth, when worth is your birthright. And so I just want you to think about that, because no matter if you're standing outside of it or you're walking inside of it, a story is going to be told. And so, how do we take back the narrative that's being scribed day by day? I mean, you have 365 days in a year, you have 52 weeks, You have 7 days in a week. You got 24 hours in a day. And with that time, how you're showing up is how the words are being transcribed when it comes to your life. So, one of the things that I want us to kind of take ownership of are our thoughts. And one of the things that I want to talk about tonight while we walk through how we walk inside of our stories, because we're not fighting for worthiness. We're already worthy, okay? So we're not doing that anymore. But what causes a lot of us to do it is shame. And shame is a very layered topic, but it is ultimately what causes us to stand outside of our stories. The definition of shame, as noted by Brene, we're quoting a lot of her stuff tonight, is to it's a painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. It is attributing that something that we've done, experienced, or failed at makes us no longer worthy for connection. And I think that this is something that happens a lot when we are in environments where we are always having to live up to something, and we fall short. That causes us to question our sense of worthiness or our right to connection because we fell short or we had an experience that flawed us or marked us, and deemed us less than. And so, because I have this thing that is attached to my identity, I'm no longer worthy of connection. Therefore, I have no worth. And I really want us to stop with that. And the best way to do it in step one, because we're going to go through 3 sections tonight, and how to walk out your story. The first thing you need to do is own your light. Okay. You got to own it. Every single bit of what you are is worthy. Okay. There's nothing about you that was mistakenly assigned to you. And I know that that's sometimes hard to hear when we go through less than favorable scenarios. When things have been attached to us that we felt were unfair or unjust, those are the things that we often want to push out of our stories. And I have learned through my life experience that some of the things that I've tried so hard to push out of my story are the very things that come up the most because the people that are assigned to my journey in one way or the other need those pieces of who I am, not necessarily to continue to make me relive a negative experience, but it is an opportunity for me to become a teacher to those who may be facing similar circumstances. So we've got to own every bit of our light, okay? And I had a quote that I was listening to a podcast, and this quote came, and I was like, whoa, wow. And I just had to take a minute and ingest it, and I had to listen to it again. But in owning our light, this is something that I need for my female listeners to hear. And it said, the implication of a woman's strength is the inability to see her humanity. Okay, so when we're talking about owning our light, one of the implications that women face is she's strong. And so this perceived strength or this display of strength often causes the world at large to be blind to her humanity because she's so strong she can. And sometimes it's she's strong because she has to, and vulnerability wasn't always a choice that was in her deck of cards. And so we don't see her humanity, so we don't see the cracks and we don't see all of what it takes for her to show up in the truth of who she is. And so we don't give her the space to simply be. We just tax her with the tasks necessary to meet our obligations or to meet our deadlines or to help us become whatever it is we're striving to become with her on our team. Okay, so that was for my ladies. But I wanted to say something about that because men or woman strength is defined as the capacity for exertion or endurance. Your strength or your capacity for strength or your capacity for endurance is often what people use to determine what they can give you. So if you always show up strong and you're always proving that you can, the idea that you can't is so far removed from reality that people just keep dumping and they keep expecting and they keep pushing because you prove that you've got this level of endurance and you can do it. So, okay, since you keep showing up and you keep saying that this is what you're capable of, then let's write today's page as she can, he will, right? And there's a level of humanity that we've all got to yield to at some point in time, or we're going to find ourselves completely exhausted and frustrated because our humanity is not being factored into the equation. But you're teaching people to stretch and deplete you by putting on this armor of strength that is skewed. Okay, so the story you're telling them is you will. Not that you want to, not that you have the time to, but I will. You start adjusting your life to the demands of external obligations. This is you walking outside of your story. I'm trying to get us to what stand in it. We've got to walk this thing out day by day. And every day we do that by exuding characteristics and committing to that which is really for us and learning the power of now. Okay, and that's hard sometimes, but I wanted us to think about that. And vulnerability is something many of us shy away from. Many of us have a negative connotation associated with the word vulnerability, and most people assume if you are saying I have to be vulnerable, then you are saying that I have to be weak, and that's not actually true. But there are some murky definitions sometimes. Like I read the Merriam-Webster definition of vulnerability and was like, yeah, I don't want that. I don't, no, thank you. I'm not interested. And so, to give context, Merriam Webster defines vulnerability as capable of being physically or emotionally wounded. It says that you're open to attack or damage. And in the grand scheme of things, most people aren't jumping in the line subscribing to that. Like, who woke up today saying, guess what? I am emotionally and physically available to be wounded today. Like who who did that? I didn't. Like I didn't wake up saying, "Yep, definitely available for your attacks. I'm open to it. Like shoot me, give me your best shot." Most of us don't do that. And so I want to reframe it in a different way that gives us opportunity to walk in a level of vulnerability, okay? And so again, my lady Brene, she defines vulnerability as uncertainty and risk and emotional exposure. It is the unstable feeling we get when we step outside of our comfort zones and we do something that forces us to loosen control. I feel like that's a definition that's a little bit easier to subscribe to. That's a definition that challenges me and I'm up for it. The other one, no Pam, thank you ma'am, I don't want to do that. But what I will do is be pushed outside of my comfort zone and I'm going to do something that forces me to loosen control. Not necessarily fully let go and let it be a free for all, but I'm going to loosen my control because ultimately, when we are trying to control every possible outcome, we are doing nothing more than running ourselves crazy because we're not sovereign. So we don't know every single detail to plan for. But what we can do is yield to the task that we've been assigned, the instructions that we've been given, and walk those out until we get our next set of instructions, right? So, but that also requires us leaving the nest. It requires us walking away from our comfort zone. I define comfort zone as the place in which you've already reached a level of mastery. And so it's no longer challenging for you. You're just coexisting. There's no more evolution of who you are capable of being. So let's walk away from that thing that no longer pushes us to strive for more or causes us to want to be better. Because at that point, we're telling the story that we are simply a maintainer. Okay, we're not an innovator, we're not a game changer, we are not looking for anything more than status quo. And I don't know about you guys, but that's not something that I want to be associated with. So I've got to wave bye bye to the comfort zone because this is a level in which I have mastered and it's time to go to the next thing. So that's going to require me to loosen control and yield to the unknown. Yeah, I think so. So, one of the things that I want us to do when we are telling our stories is we need to paint a realistic portrait of our life. Okay? We need to understand that we didn't all have the same opportunities. We didn't all come from the same neighborhoods. We don't all have the same cultural advantages. That's just hardcore truth. That is statistical data, that is systemic data, that is the truth. Okay, so whatever your story is, let's paint a realistic idea of what that is. Okay, and I want us to then divide out what we were intended to carry versus what has been placed on us to carry. Okay. And so then we start painting those visuals and we really lock into, you know what? I was never fully intended to carry this, but I have been for so long that I have a level of fatigue that causes me to not operate at full capacity with what I was intended to carry. And that sometimes is hard to differentiate. I always say that wrong word. Differentiate. Because if we've built an idea or an ideology of who we are based on what's been placed on us, we've almost made it a subcategory of truth for us, and it's not. It's just you could, so you did, but it's not what you were intended to carry. And so sometimes that requires separating from the noise, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, getting still enough and quiet enough and paying attention to those subtle cues and agitations that we get in certain environments, right? That say, hey, something about this, I need to lean into this a little bit more to find out, like, was this something that I was sent to maybe just shed a bright light on and then move on to the next thing? Or was this something that I was supposed to take root in and build and, community and lodge here for a while? Like, sometimes we just need to figure that out, okay? So paint a realistic portrait of your reality. And now, once you got a clear visual, I want you to own your worth. Own it. Fully embrace and celebrate every bit of it. Okay? Every bit of it. Realize that your worth is not a byproduct of your output, it is your birthright. Hear me, ladies and gentlemen, near and far. Your worth is not predicated on your output. You were worthy upon arrival, and you really got to get a good picture of that. And this is why painting realistic pictures of who we are helps. Listen, I am who I am, whether I put something out today or not. If you are a content curator, whether you get content out or not, you are still worthy because your worth is your birthright. And when you don't realize that, you get in that scenario where you'll exchange your birthright for a temporary satisfaction. We know the Bible story. You'll exchange your birthright for a bowl of soup. We know the Bible story. But it's your birthright, right? So we've got to remember that and stop giving people what isn't theirs to begin with. Your birthright is yours. Who you are is enough. Okay? And then I want you, once you've owned it and you realize this is my birthright, I need you to start throwing your own parties. Okay? I need you to throw your own party. It is not about being braggadocious. It is not about being self-absorbed. But here's something that I need you to understand. You teach the world how to respond to you by how you respond to yourself. Okay? So every time you achieve a goal, it's downplayed and we say, oh, ain't that big a deal, or oh, I don't need the accolades, or oh, I don't need the pat on the back. What you're saying to the world is, when I produce and when I succeed, it is okay for you to dumb it down and say, that was a bunch of nothing, or to say it's not worthy of praise. Okay. And so you got to think about that for a second, because I know a lot of people sometimes who are just like, oh, wasn't that big a deal? This is what I do. Okay. Even if it is what you do, it's not what other people do. So celebrate that. That's what makes you uniquely you. Okay. I used to be able to write lyrics without a whole lot of thought. And because I stopped sharpening my skill, because I wasn't getting the that I thought I needed externally, I stopped sharpening my skills and I stopped throwing my own parties for it. But I was teaching people that they could downplay who I was because of how I was responding to my soul. And so think about that for a second, because think about it. When you are around people, and I am Queen Celebration, okay? I am throwing something for all the things because I believe that you should. And so anybody who knows me knows, look, Jamila is going to make a big deal out of this. And I have taught a lot of the people that are close to me, oh no, ma'am, oh no, sir, we don't just forget about that and act like that wasn't a big deal. We're not downplaying that. Oh no, we are not. We are going to celebrate it because you know the investment, the time, the energy, the sleepless nights, and the amount of energy that you had to exert to achieve this. So, taking inventory of your own investment, why wouldn't you celebrate the profitable outcome that you received as a result of what you put in? Think about it. In the corporate sector, when it's time for performance evaluations, they want to talk about what you did over the last 12 months or the preceding 12 months. So you, at that point, have to be able to give an account for how you were able to successfully accomplish this. What resources did you use? You know what I mean? Like that is a time where I gotta celebrate that. But if you downplayed every single thing that you did, you taught yourself to discount you. So when they discount you and say, well, we're only gonna give you X, Y, Z an increase, you can't be mad at them because you showed them over the past 365 days that it wasn't that big a deal. Oh, I don't deserve credit or credence for that. Oh, it's fine. No big deal. That's the story you're telling them. So when they read your page back to you, you can't get upset with them. Can't get upset with them because you taught them how to do this. Okay? Section 2. So section 1 was own your light. Section 2, shut it down. Shut it down. I need you to shut it down before it starts. Jamila, what am I shutting down? Rumination. What is rumination, Jamila? I've never heard of that. It is a kind of negative thinking which makes us become stuck mentally, and it causes us to keep spinning our wheels, making no progression. Let me say it again. Jamila, what in God's name is rumination? Rumination is the kind of negative thinking that causes us to become stuck mentally while spinning our wheels, making absolutely no progress. And we do it so often. We sit here and we mull over and over and over, wheels spinning, going absolutely nowhere fast. We do it. And when you do it, that negativity takes you back to the point of offense, causes you to relive every single emotion associated with whatever that scenario was, while making no progression. Because all you're doing is acknowledging and reliving, but you're not resolving. Okay? So, what I need you to do when you see yourself getting in this place of rumination, when you notice that you are having repetitive thoughts of negativity, when you find yourself just in a sunken place, I need you to decide to break the cycle. I need you to have enough self compassion to break the cycle. One of the ways you can do it, because what's happening inwardly is hard to break unless you actually have to become physical. Okay, so when you find yourself in this pattern of just replaying and reliving, and it's over and over and over again, I need you to literally get up and walk away. I need you to take a mental break. I need you to shut it down. I need you to go take a walk. I need you to, I don't know, scream it out, talk it out, but I need you to do something other than what you're doing. Why? Because you can't break the cycle without it. Think about it. Like, you can't break something until you do something different from that to get a different outcome. So when you find yourself having repetitious thoughts that are negative and you're only spinning your wheels, I need you to own it, and I need you to do something different. Get up, call your accountability partner, go for a walk, Think about when children are learning how to self-soothe. Think about it. Initially, it takes a longer time to get to a point of getting themselves to a place of realizing I'm okay. Okay? So think of yourself in that way for a minute, because maybe this isn't something that you're familiar with. It may take you a longer amount of time to get to a place of acknowledging I'm okay. I'm okay, and what I continue to meditate on is not actually happening. It is a past experience that is clouding my vision to deal with present reality. And so, what I'm going to do is address it. I'm going to cast it down. I'm going to say, you don't get to control me today. Yes, that is something that happened to me, but it is a past tense occurrence. And I am going to become fully present in the here and the now because I want a different resolve. I want to tell a different story because you get to decide to tell a different story. It's your life. Do something different. And then I need you to do something else. I need you to address your cynical hostility. What is that, Jamila? It is a way of thinking and reacting, and it causes you to see people as threats. So it causes you to think in a way that sees other people as threats to you. It involves you interpreting people's behaviors in the worst ways possible. Everything that they do, no matter what they're doing, you see it through a negative lens. And I have found that that is more true for people who don't give themselves grace. It is more true for people who have a skewed vision of themselves. I said this to someone not long ago. People will never see the best in you when they can't see the best in themselves. So people, and we're going to point our fingers back at ourselves. When we have been caught in a pattern of rumination, which is a negative thinking pattern, which spills over, right? And we're making no progress. So it's hard for us to see people differently because we've been stuck in a funky thinking pattern for so long and we didn't break the cycle. So now we look at everybody else as a threat. Anybody that's doing something that we thought we could have done, we see as a threat. We're really just needing to address our own insecurities. Listen, they're doing something different. You can too. You can choose to tell a different story. Look, when you find yourself being cynical towards others, I would ask you to do this. I would ask for you to reserve the judgment. I'm not saying it's completely wrong, but what I would ask you to do is to reserve the judgment until you find evidence that supports it. Does that make sense? Because you might be accurate in your depiction, but without evidence to support it, you're wrongfully handling other people. Okay? So if they have not provided evidence for my negative perception of them, then maybe I need to take a minute and step back. Hold up. Wait a minute. They haven't given me that version of them. What I heard about them might have been true, but it might have been associated with a different season in their life, and that's not who they are today. So maybe, quite possibly, I need to allow them the opportunity to show up in the truth that in the story that they're telling, because maybe they're telling a different story now. And if the evidence supports a better person, then I need to handle them differently. Because this is what you're going to want for people to do for you when you start to tell a different story. When you stop ruminating, when you stop being cynical and hostile towards others, and you decide to start telling a different story, you're going to need somebody to reserve their judgment of you until there's evidence to support it. Wrong or right, good or bad. Okay, so that's hard. That is really hard, especially for people who are incredibly guarded, or people who have a heightened sense of discernment, or they're emotionally charged people. Reserving judgment is hard. That is something you have to, and it's a discipline that you have to acquire, and it takes time. Jamila is all about grace. I'm not asking you to be an overnight change, but I am asking you to commit to a gradual progression of a better version of you, because you're capable of it. Okay. And then, okay, this is one of those self checks. You need to look at how your behavior is pushing people away and prompting them to act negatively toward you. You have to look at how you're showing up and how it's impacting people's response to you. Because it is very easy to always say, well, they did, they said, they did, they said. Well, what did you do? How did you present yourself to them? Were you off-putting? Was there something about you that made them be like, yeah, no, I'm good? Can you own that? Can you own the fact that you don't always say it right? Can you own the fact that the presentation of yourself that you give isn't always the best one? Like, can you own your part? I gotta be more disciplined in that area. I have not arrived, okay? There are some things that I gotta consider about Jamila as well. I am not on here saying you. I'm saying us as a tribe, us as a community. These are things that we can be doing differently so that we can tell a different story. Okay? Section 1, own your light. Section 2, shut it down. Section 3, words create worlds. I'm gonna say it again because I need us to like really let it sink in. Okay? Our words create our worlds. Okay? It is clearly depicted in the opening text in the Bible, right? The world was without form or void, the darkness upon it, and all of those wonderful things. But the world was created with let there be. Let there be. And because God is fully God, and he doesn't have a self-esteem or self-image complex, he opens his mouth in his authority, and he is not timid. He is not fearful that when he says a thing, it's not going to happen. So he says, let there be, with an understanding that whatever I say is to be shall be. Okay? We are created in his image and in his likeness. Maybe some of you are like, Jamila, I'm not into that Jesus thing. Okay, let me give you a reference that most of the world can identify with, and it's not as problematic. Albert Einstein says, physical concepts are free creations of the human mind and are not, however it may seem, uniquely determined by an external world. Albert Einstein says, physical concepts are free creations of the human mind and are not, however it may seem, uniquely determined by an external world. Did you hear what I said? So, why did I say that? Because physical concepts are free creations of your mind. So what you are saying internally becomes a physical byproduct of your world. Okay? A concept is something that is conceived in your mind. Hearing allows the formation of a concept. So whether I hear it inwardly or externally, the words that I am hearing are creating concepts. Those are things that become the physical manifestation of what I've created in my mind. So why am I calling this the story that we tell? I need you to think about what you're saying inwardly. I want you to think about your meditations and your rumination, and I really want you to get a grasp on it and look at how it showed up in your world just today. Just today. I'm not asking you to look years and years back. Today. What you thought manifested itself in some capacity just today. Do you like what you created? Yes or no? Do I like the world my words created today? Yes or no? If I don't, then I've got to do some work. I've got to change my narrative. I've got to speak what I expect to see. Listen, the preservation of our culture is dependent on humanity's unique mastery of language. The preservation of culture is dependent on our mastery of language. It allows us to transmit beliefs across generations through storytelling. So the story we tell preserves a culture. Do you hear what I'm saying? Do you hear what I'm saying? What we say preserves a culture. Human beings need to be mindful of what they say. Language. Some people will say it's verbal, nonverbal. People say body language. It's all language. And your language is creating your reality. It's shaping your world. Whatsoever you say, these are not just things that are said in cliches that people have misconstrued. There's so much weight in what you say. And so you need to be mindful. And my question to you is, what will you say next? What will you say next, people? Given what I just said, that the preservation of a culture is dependent on our mastery of language, what will you say next? Not what are you waiting to hear, but what will you say? From this day forward, I need us to be a little bit more cognizant of what we say. What we say. I went to Romans 10 and 17, and it says faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Okay? And so faith cometh by hearing. Why does faith cometh by hearing? Because hearing what? Allows the formation of a concept. What did we just say? Hearing allows the formation of a concept. Faith cometh by hearing. So hearing allows the formation of a concept. So when I hear something, there's a formation of a concept that allows me to hang on to faith. There's something about what I'm hearing that causes me to grow in faith. Because why? A concept is something that is conceived in my mind. So when I'm saying something, I'm believing it. I'm shaping my reality by it. So now there's a concept that's being formed in my mind. And so now my physical manifestation is a breathing, living example of what I had already conceived in my mind. So I need to be careful of what I hear, because I'm birthing realities through what I hear. I'm birthing realities through what I hear. So what I say to myself matters. What I say to others matters, because the hearing allows the formation of a concept. A concept is something that is conceived in the mind. What is conceived in the mind becomes the physical construction of our world. Am I making sense? So you have got to be concise in what you say. And if you have nothing to say, I have said this quote. My husband said this to me a long time ago, and I don't remember who said it to him, but they said, silence is better than ignorance. I'd rather not have an ignorant world because of words that I chose to speak out of turn. Be quiet until you got something better to say, because it's going to manifest itself in your world. So you got to hear it until you believe it, because it may take 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 times for you to hear that thing before you can develop a concept that you can produce in your world. And that's okay. That's okay, because repetition is a good thing. Repetition is a great thing, because the more I say it, the more I subscribe to it. The more I subscribe to it, the more I will implement it. Okay? So if you got to say it a few times over, cool beans. No judgment here. I want you to say it until you are convicted to walk, that you will not walk in anything other than it. Okay? All right. Good news expands our comprehension of truth. The word of God is the good news, right? The word of God is the good news. And so when I am being exposed to the good news, because I'm sorry, y'all, but some people's approach to the gospel and how they teach, it drives me up a wall, because it just seems like we're angry and we're yelling at people and we're like, blah, 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 blah. And people are like, whoo, y'all's faith and y'all's Jesus is me. I don't do that. The gospel is the good news. So, talk to me about the good news. Give me a foundation of the good news so that I can grow in faith, so that I can grow in faith. Okay. So, when I'm hearing the good news and I'm understanding that I am a recipient of this, I'm a byproduct of this. Wow, how that helps me tell a different story, right? And so now I'm becoming more aware of truth because truth is being presented to me. So now I have been exposed to something that is going to cause me to grow in the area of my faith. And so now I'm free. I'm free from the false narrative that this world attempted to put on me. Whew, I felt that. I felt that. I felt that. Because the good news gives me truth to gravitate and stand upon, which frees me from the false narrative that the world tried to place on me. What is freedom? The quality of state of being. It is the absence of necessity or corrosion. We are no longer constrained. And so I am free to walk in the truth. And that's how I want to show up every day. I don't want to subscribe to a false narrative. I am no longer operating in mindlessness. I have a level of self awareness and self confidence. And I want to speak to that really quickly because what I have found to be true for so many people is that we feel that by being quiet and more reserved and not really shooting our shots or singing our own praises or whatever is humility. No, it's not. It's a muzzle. Okay? So you are authorized to speak of your goodness. You are authorized to demand your worth. You are authorized to say, I am not charging you for my time, but I am charging you for my experience. Okay? Because however long it took me to acquire the skill set necessary for me to meet your need, because we are all an answer. Understand and never forget that. You are an answer. And so, however long it took you to acquire the skills necessary to be the answer to the solutions that you showed up to today, you get to charge for your experience. Okay, so yeah, I may not be the bargain life coach. I may not be the bargain entrepreneur consultant. I may not be the bargain tech guy, but I am an answer, and I'm answering your present need. And so I get to charge for my experience. I'm not, because now you're teaching people that you're the discount queen. I can always come to you and you gonna discount this, but they can go to somebody else and pay, full price because that person has taught them that I'm charging you for my experience. Like, it's okay, people. It's all right. It's all right. And so, three things, you guys. Own your light. Shut it down. Words create worlds. And I really want you to think about that tonight. I do. And I want you to honor yourself more than you have. And I want you to figure out where you fall. Have you gotten to a place where you are comfortable standing? Standing because we're not stagnant. Have you gotten to a place where you're able to walk in your story? Are you still standing outside of it, fighting for your worth, hustling for your worth, begging and pleading for your worth? Where do you fall? Be honest with yourself. Because we can't tell a different story until we acknowledge the truth of where we are and come up with a plan to get to a different stance. Okay? So if you find yourself standing outside of your story, hustling for worthiness, for whatever the reasons are, typically it's rooted in shame. But whatever your reasons are, I need us to decide, I'm telling a different story from this day forward. And I'm going to stand in the truth. I'm going to own all that is me. And wherever I am at in my journey, I'm going to honor it by deciding to create a different world with my words. I'm no longer meditating on negative thoughts that cause me to just spin my wheels and make absolutely no progress. I'm going to break the cycle. I am going to do something different. I am going to take accountability for how I've shown up in people's lives that warranted negative responses from them. I am going to stop being so cynical, right? But I'm going to start doing the work within me first. And when I become a better version of myself internally, I can show up better for others. I can show up better for myself, right? Let's do the work. Tonight was really just about a heart chat. I want us to tell a different story. I want us to be very diligent about doing that. Okay? 2020 caused us to slow down in a way we probably never would have ever done had the pandemic not happened. And so, in slowing down, we were forced to deal with our truths. We were forced to deal with everything that we are and everything that we were not. We had to address our imposter syndrome. We had to deal with all of it because the world had slowed down enough for us to see ourselves for real. And what did you do with what you learned? And as the world slowly reopens and things are kind of going back to this new normal, don't get caught back up in telling a story that causes you to live outside of it. Honor what you learned. Stay committed to your process. And let's choose to tell a different story. I love you guys. Good night. Bye bye.